who's in the frame to join Trump's new top team. Donald Trump made the first official hire of his incoming administration, announcing 2024 campaign co-chair Susan Summerall Wiles as his chief of staff. The president-elect's transition team is already vetting a series of candidates ahead of his return to the White House on January 20, 2025. Many who served under Trump in his first term do not plan to return, though a handful of loyalists are rumored by U.S. media to be making a comeback. The 78-year-old Republican is also surrounded by new allies who could fill his cabinet, staff his White House, and take up other key roles across government. Here is a closer look at names in the mix for the top jobs. Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles. Susie Wiles and campaign co-chair Chris LaCivita were the masterminds behind Trump's landslide victory over Kamala Harris. In his victory speech on Wednesday, he called her the Ice Maiden, a reference to her composure, and claimed she likes to stay in the background. Wiles was confirmed the next day as the first appointee of his second term as his White House Chief of Staff. She will be the first woman ever to hold that job. Chief of Staff is often a president's top aide, overseeing daily operations in the West Wing and managing the boss's staff. Wiles, 67, has worked in Republican politics for decades, from Ronald Reagan's successful 1980 presidential campaign to turning businessman Rick Scott into Florida's governor in just 7 months back in 2010. Republicans have said she commands respect and has an ability to corral the big egos of those in Trump's orbit, which could enable her to impose a sense of order that none of his 4 previous chiefs of staff could. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. RFK Jr., as he is known, is an environmental lawyer by trade, a vaccine skeptic by fame, and the nephew of former President John F. Kennedy. His troubling past makes it unlikely he could secure the security clearance needed for a cabinet post, but after leading a Trump campaign initiative called Make America Healthy Again, he is expected to become a kind of public health czar. Despite having no medical qualifications to his name, Kennedy, 70, could potentially influence the Health and Human Services Department, the Agriculture Department, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention (CDC), and the Food and Drug Safety Administration (FDA). Elon Musk, the world's richest man, poured millions of dollars into re-electing Trump, and critics fear he will now have the power to weaken or entirely shape the regulations that impact his companies, Tesla, SpaceX, and X. Both he and Trump have focused on the idea of him leading a new Department of Government Efficiency, where he would cut costs and streamline what he calls a massive, suffocating federal bureaucracy. The would-be agency's acronym DOGE is a playful reference to a meme coin cryptocurrency Musk has previously promoted. But Musk, 53, could also play a role in global diplomacy. He participated in Trump's first call with Ukraine's Zelensky on Wednesday. Vance refers to Harris as trash while speaking in Atlanta, Ohio. Sen. J.D. Vance, Trump's running mate, has referred to Kamala Harris as trash. Speaking Monday in Atlanta, Vance ripped Harris by referencing a comment made by President Joe Biden suggesting that Trump supporters were garbage. Biden, in turn, was responding to a joke by comic Tony Hinchcliffe at Trump's recent Madison Square Garden rally, in which Hinchcliffe likened Puerto Rico to a floating island of garbage. The Trump campaign has faced days of criticism from Harris allies over Hinchcliffe's joke. It has focused on Biden's reference to Trump supporters instead. Vance told the Atlanta audience that Americans should not be called garbage for supporting border restrictions or wanting to be able to afford groceries. In 2 days we are going to take out the trash in Washington, D.C., and the trash's name is Kamala Harris, he said. The comment stirred anger among Harris allies online. LeVar Stoney, the mayor of Richmond, Virginia, said Vance had made one of the worst mistakes of his political career. More than 81 million people have already cast ballots in the 2024 election. That's about half the number who voted overall in 2020. More people voted early that year because of the pandemic. Still, several states have reported record levels of early voting because former President Donald Trump has urged Republicans to vote that way now. Early voting data only tells you who has cast ballots, not who they voted for. We'll have to wait for Tuesday night to find that out. But meanwhile, you can pore over the early vote data in your state. Trump touts endorsement from son of Roberto Clemente. Trump touted the endorsement of Roberto Clemente Jr., the son of the MLB Hall of Famer Roberto Clemente, a prominent Puerto Rican who played for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Trump hopes Clemente Jr.'s backing can help him with Hispanic voters after a comics joke at his Madison Square Garden rally offended many Puerto Ricans. "My father, the name Clemente. What it means is goodwill and unity," Clemente said at Trump's Pittsburgh rally. "I believe that your team is going to bring it all home." Clemente said he wants to help Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who Trump says will have virtually free rein to oversee health programs despite his history of promoting theories that contradict the overwhelming consensus of scientists. Trump called the endorsement a great honor to Clemente Jr. Had his own brief MLB career. Cedric the Entertainer introduces Harris at her Pittsburgh rally. The stand-up comic and actor declared, "She is not a demagogue, and yet she is not demure." A Missouri native, Cedric the Entertainer is known for appearing on The Steve Harvey Show, in the Barbershop movies, and in Spike Lee's stand-up concert film, The Original Kings of Comedy. Podcaster Joe Rogan endorses Trump. Joe Rogan, the nation's most listened-to podcaster, announced on the eve of the election that he's endorsing Trump. Rogan, in a post on X promoting his interview with Trump supporter Elon Musk, made a compelling case for the Republican presidential nominee and said, "I agree with him every step of the way. For the record, yes, that's an endorsement of Trump," he added. Trump late last month sat for a 3-hour interview with Rogan for his podcast. A presidential campaign that has careened through a felony trial, an incumbent president being pushed off the ticket, and multiple assassination attempts, comes down to a final push across a handful of states on the eve of Election Day. Kamala Harris will spend all of Monday in Pennsylvania, whose 19 electoral votes offer the largest prize among the states expected to determine the Electoral College outcome. The vice president and Democratic nominee will visit working-class areas including Allentown, and end with a late-night Philadelphia rally that includes Lady Gaga and Oprah Winfrey. Donald Trump plans 4 rallies in 3 states, beginning in Raleigh, North Carolina, and stopping twice in Pennsylvania, with events in Reading and Pittsburgh. The Republican nominee and former president ends his campaign the way he ended the first 2, with a late Monday night event in Grand Rapids, Michigan. A Trump victory would make him the first incoming president to have been indicted and convicted of a felony. After his hush money trial in New York, he will gain the power to end other federal investigations pending against him. Trump would also become the second president in history to win non-consecutive White House terms, after Grover Cleveland in the late 19th century. Harris is vying to become the first woman, first black woman, and first person of South Asian descent to reach the Oval Office. 4 years after she broke the same barriers in national office by becoming President Joe Biden's second-in-command. The vice president ascended to the top of the Democratic ticket after Biden's disastrous performance in the June debate set into motion his withdrawing from the race. That was just one of a series of convulsions that have hit this year's campaign. Trump survived by millimeters a would-be assassin's bullet at a rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. His Secret Service detail foiled a second attempt in September when a gunman had set up a rifle as Trump golfed at one of his courses in Florida. Harris, 60, has played down the historic nature of her candidacy, which materialized only after the 81-year-old president ended his re-election bid. After his June debate against the 78-year-old Trump accentuated questions about Biden's age. Instead, Harris has pitched herself as a generational change, emphasized her support for abortion rights after the Supreme Court's 2022 decision ending the constitutional right to abortion services, and regularly noted the former president's role in the January 6 attack on the U.S. Capitol, assembling a coalition ranging from progressives like Rep. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York to Republican former Vice President Dick Cheney. Harris has called Trump a threat to democracy, and late in the campaign even embraced the critique that Trump is accurately described as a fascist. Heading into Monday, Harris has mostly stopped mentioning Trump. She is promising to solve problems and seek consensus, while sounding an almost exclusively optimistic tone, reminiscent of her campaign's opening days when she embraced a politics of joy and the campaign theme, freedom, from the very start. Our campaign has not been about being against something, it is about being for something, Harris said Sunday evening at Michigan State University. Trump, renewing his Make America Great Again and America First slogans, has made his hardline approach to immigration and withering criticisms of Harris and Biden the anchors of his argument for a second administration. He's hammered Democrats for an inflationary economy, and he's pledged to lead an economic golden age, end international conflicts and seal the U.S. southern border. But Trump also has veered often into grievances over being prosecuted after trying to overturn Biden's victory, and repeatedly denigrated the country he wants to lead again as a failed nation. As recently as Sunday, he renewed his false claims that U.S. elections are rigged against him, mused about violence against journalists, and said he shouldn't have left the White House in 2021. Dark turns that have overshadowed another anchor of his closing argument. Kamala broke it. I will fix it. The election is likely to be decided across 7 states. Trump won Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin in 2016, only to see them flip to Biden in 2020. North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada add the Sun Belt swath of the presidential battleground map. Trump won North Carolina twice and lost Nevada twice. He won Arizona and Georgia in 2016 but saw them slip to Democrats in 2020. Harris's team has projected confidence in recent days, pointing to a large gender gap in early voting data and research, showing late deciding voters have broken her way. They also believe in the strength of their campaign infrastructure. This weekend, the Harris campaign had more than 90,000 volunteers helping turn out voters, and knocked on more than 3 million doors across the battleground states. Still, Harris aides have insisted she remains the underdog. Trump's team has projected confidence as well, arguing that the former president's populist appeal will attract younger and working-class voters across racial and ethnic lines. The idea is that Trump can amass an atypical Republican coalition, even as other traditional GOP blocs, notably college-educated voters, become more Democratic.